No one had ever seen Adrian Cross smile, not in boardrooms where billion-dollar deals were signed in silence, not at award ceremonies where applause thundered around him, not even in the rare candid photos that leaked online. His face always the same, sharp, composed, untouchable. They called him the ice executive, and Adrian didn't mind. Cold meant control, control meant safety. It had been that way since the night everything warm in his life had burned out. The city pulsed beneath his penthouse windows, alive with neon and noise, but Adrian stood in stillness, watching it like a man observing a world he didn't belong to. "Your 8:30 dinner meeting has been confirmed." His assistant's voice echoed from the doorway. "Cancel it," Adrian said without turning. A pause. Sir, I'll eat out." That alone was unusual enough to earn a second glance. Adrian never ate out. Meals were fuel, efficient, scheduled, solitary. But tonight felt different, or maybe just emptier. The restaurant he chose wasn't one of his usual elite haunts. It was crowded, loud, imperfect, a place where laughter spilled across tables and waiters rushed between conversations. Adrian sat in a corner booth, his presence immediately shifting the air around him. People noticed. They always did. The suit, the posture, the quiet intensity, it didn't belong here. A waiter approached cautiously. "What can I get you, sir?" "A black coffee, and whatever's fastest." The waiter nodded quickly and disappeared. Adrian leaned back, scanning the room with detached curiosity. Couples leaned into each other. Friends argued over fries. A child giggled uncontrollably as her mother wiped ketchup off her cheeks. Normal life. Something he hadn't touched in years. And then a loud, unfiltered laugh cut through everything. Not polite, not restrained. Wild. Adrian's eyes shifted. Across the room, a girl sat alone at a small table by the window. She wore a simple hoodie, her hair tied in a messy bun, and in front of her was a ridiculous mountain of fries. She wasn't scrolling her phone. She wasn't trying to look composed. She was living, dipping fries into too much ketchup, talking to herself, making faces at the street outside. And then, without warning, she looked straight at him. Adrian didn't look away. Most people did. She didn't. Instead, she squinted slightly, tilted her head, and burst into laughter. Not a quiet chuckle. A full, uncontrollable, head-thrown-back laugh. And then she pointed at him. Actually pointed, with a fry in her hand. Adrian froze. No one had ever done that before. Around them, a few people turned to look, sensing something unusual. The girl tried to stop laughing, but it only made it worse. She covered her mouth, shook her head, and finally managed to speak between breaths. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "But you look like you just got told the world ended. And you're still trying to finish your coffee." Adrian stared at her. He should have been offended. He should have stood up and left. He should have dismissed her like he dismissed everything unpredictable, but something glitched. Because she wasn't mocking him, she was amused, genuinely, and weirdly kindly. "I didn't realize my face was that entertaining," he said flatly. That only made her grin wider. "Oh, it's incredible. Like, if someone told me you were secretly a robot learning how to be human, I'd believe it." A pause. And failing slightly, she added, popping a fry into her mouth. Adrian blinked. Then, for reasons he didn't understand, he said, "I see." She gestured toward his table. "You gonna sit there judging the entire restaurant, or do you want some fries?" He looked at her, at the fries, at the absurdity of the situation. No, thank you," she shrugged. "Your loss. These are life-changing." 5 minutes later, Adrian found himself sitting across from her. He didn't remember deciding to move. "Are doing it again," she said, squinting at him. Doing what?" That face. Like you're analyzing whether I'm a threat to national security." "I analyze everything." Sounds exhausting. It's efficient." She leaned forward slightly. "When was the last time you did something inefficient?" Adrian didn't answer, because he didn't know. "I'm Mia, by the way," she said, offering a fry like it was a handshake. He hesitated. Then slowly he took it. "Adrian." She smiled. "See? Progress already." Mia didn't treat him like a CEO. She didn't ask what he did, didn't try to impress him, didn't soften her words or sharpen them for effect. She just talked about her day, about missing a bus, about how she once cried over burnt toast because it felt personal. Adrian listened, at first out of curiosity. Then something else, something quieter, something unfamiliar. At one point she caught him staring. "What?" she asked. "Or different?" She laughed lightly. "A different good or different should I call security?" He paused. A different, unpredictable? She nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, I get that a lot. A moment of silence passed. Then she studied him again, softer this time. You look tired, she said. I'm not. You are, just not physically. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. No one spoke to him like that. No one saw through him like that. I'm fine. Mia didn't argue. She just pushed the fries closer to him. Ola, eat, she said gently. You look like you've been starving for something. He almost laughed. Almost. They talked for an hour. Then, too, Adrian forgot to check his phone, forgot about meetings, forgot about time. And somewhere between the third shared plate of fries and Mia's story about getting lost in a city she'd never been to, it happened. She said something ridiculous about pigeons being undercover agents of chaos, and Adrian, without warning, smiled. It was small, barely there, but real. Mia froze mid-sentence. Oh, wait, he blinked. What? You just smiled? I did not. You did. I didn't. She leaned back, eyes wide with triumph. Oh my God, I did it. I made the robot glitch. Adrian shook his head, but there was something different in his expression now, lighter. And for the first time in years, alive. The night ended without ceremony. No dramatic goodbye. No exchanged numbers at first. Just a quiet pause outside the restaurant. Mia looked up at him. You should do this again. I eat fries. Alive a little, he considered. Then slowly he said, maybe I will. She smiled, and this time, he didn't stop his own. The next morning, Adrian walked into his office. Same glass walls, same polished floors, same controlled silence. But something had shifted. His assistant blinked in confusion. Yes, sir. Did something happen? Adrian paused. For the first time, he didn't rush to his desk, didn't open his laptop. Instead, he looked out at the city again, but this time, it didn't feel so distant. Reschedule my morning meetings, he said. Sir, I have something inefficient to do. And somewhere in a small cafe across the city, a girl with fries laughed again, completely unaware that she had just rewritten the story of a man who had forgotten how to feel. and was finally learning how to start. Adrian Cross did not wake up early. He woke up precisely. Same time, same silence, same routine, except this time something was off. He stared at the ceiling longer than usual, not thinking about stock movements, not replaying negotiations, not calculating outcomes. Just remembering. Fries, a laugh, a girl who had looked at him like he wasn't a machine. Adrian sat up slowly, pressing his fingers to his temple as if he could push the memory away. It didn't go. If anything, it got clearer. "We're doing it again," her voice echoed in his head. That strange mix of teasing and softness. Adrian exhaled sharply and got out of bed. "Oh, this is inefficient," he muttered to himself. And yet, he changed his schedule anyway. The cafe wasn't hard to find. He hadn't asked for the address, but he remembered the street, the window, the exact table. And when he walked in, there she was. Same hoodie, same messy bun, same mountain of fries. Mia looked up mid-bite, froze, then broke into a grin so wide it felt like it didn't belong in a world Adrian understood. "Cold pack," she said, like it wasn't surprising at all. Adrian stood there for half a second longer than necessary. I said maybe. She pointed a fry at him again. That's basically a yes in emotionally unavailable language. He sat down across from her. "You're assuming a lot." "Oh, you're here, aren't you?" He didn't answer that, because she wasn't wrong. "You always eat this many fries?" he asked. "Only on important days." "And today is important?" She shrugged. "Funny, you showed up. That counts." Adrian paused, something about the way she said it casual, but not meaningless. He shifted slightly in his seat. "You don't know anything about me." Mia tilted her head. "I know enough." Such as, "Oh, we're lonely." The word landed harder than it should have. Adrian's expression sharpened. "That's an assumption." No," she said gently. "It's an observation." Silence stretched between them. For a moment, Adrian almost stood up, almost walked away, but instead, he stayed. People don't usually say things like that to me." Mia smiled faintly. People usually don't laugh in your face either." That's true. And yet," she said, pushing fries toward him again, "here we are. Days turned into a pattern Adrian didn't plan, but didn't stop either. Morning meetings, afternoon control, evenings, Mia, sometimes at the cafe, sometimes walking through crowded streets where no one recognized him, sometimes sitting in silence while she talked about everything and nothing at the same time. She never asked about his money, never asked about his company. And, strangely, that made him want to tell her more. "You built something big, didn't you?" she said one evening, casually kicking a pebble as they walked. Adrian glanced at her. "Why do you think that? You carry it like weight." He looked ahead again. "It is." She didn't push further, didn't ask numbers, didn't ask details. She just said, "You don't have to carry it all the time." Adrian almost replied that he didn't know how to put it down. But the words stayed locked somewhere deeper. One night, everything shifted. They weren't at the cafe. Mia had literally dragged him, into a small roadside food stall. Plastic chairs, flickering lights, loud music. "This is unacceptable," Adrian said under his breath. "This is real," Mia corrected. "I don't eat at places like this." "You do now." Before he could argue, she ordered for both of them. "You trust this food?" he asked. "I trust life," she replied simply. Adrian shook his head. "Are you reckless? Or eat or scared?" "I'm not scared." She looked at him, really looked at him. "Yes," she said quietly. "You are." Adrian's chest tightened. Not anger, not irritation, something else, something closer to exposure. They sat in silence for a while, eating. For once, Mia wasn't talking. And Adrian noticed. "We're quiet," he said. She shrugged, eyes on her plate. Thinking. "About Vlother, you'll disappear." The words caught him off guard. "Why would I?" She let out a small laugh, but it wasn't her usual one. Because people like you always do." "What does that mean?" "It means," she said softly, "you step into something warm, then leave when it starts to matter." Adrian frowned. "You don't know me well enough to decide that." Mia looked up, and for the first time, there was no teasing in her eyes. "Then prove me wrong." The air shifted, heavier now, real. For a long moment, Adrian said nothing. Because proving her wrong meant something dangerous. It meant staying. It meant feeling. "I don't disappear," he said finally. Mia held his gaze. "Not physically," she replied. That hit deeper than anything she'd said before. That night, Adrian didn't go back to his penthouse immediately. He drove. No destination, no schedule, just movement, Mia's words looping in his mind. You step into something warm, then leave when it starts to matter." He gripped the steering wheel tighter. Because, part of him knew, she wasn't entirely wrong. His entire life had been built on distance, control, detachment. Feel less, lose less. That was the rule. That was how he survived. But now, there was this girl with fries and chaos, and honesty he couldn't filter. And somehow she was undoing everything. The next evening, Adrian didn't wait. He went straight to the cafe, but this time, Mia wasn't there. He sat down anyway. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 30. For the first time in years, Adrian felt something close to unease. He checked his phone. Nothing. No number. No way to contact her. Because they had never needed it until now. An hour later, he stood up, ready to leave. To shut it down, to go back to the version of himself that didn't wait for anyone. And then, oh wow, her voice behind him. "You actually waited." Adrian turned. Mia stood there, slightly out of breath, hair messier than usual. "I got stuck," she said, walking toward him. Long story involving a bus, a dog, and poor life decisions. Adrian stared at her for a second. Then something in his shoulders eased. "I assumed you weren't coming." Mia smiled softly. "And yet you stayed." He looked at her, really looked, then said quieter than usual, "I said I don't disappear." Disappear. Mia held his gaze, and this time she didn't laugh. Because something had changed. Something real had begun. And neither of them knew yet just how much it was going to cost. It started with a photo. Adrian didn't see it first. His board did. I care to explain this. The image slid across the glass table, stopping right in front of him. Adrian glanced down. Grainy. Taken from a distance. But clear enough. Him sitting on a cheap plastic chair at a roadside stall. Mia across from him, laughing, pointing a fry at his face like she owned the moment. The room was silent. Sharp-suited executives watched him carefully like they were waiting for a crack in marble. Adrian leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. "It's a photo," he said calmly. "It's a liability." One of them snapped. Another chimed in, "You've spent years building an image of control, precision, discipline, and now you're being photographed in this?" "In what?" Adrian asked, voice steady. "In chaos." Adrian's eyes flicked back to the photo. Mia's laughter frozen in time, unfiltered, uncontrolled, alive. He slid the image back across the table. "Then maybe it's time you redefine what control looks like." That didn't go over well. By evening, the internet had done what it always does, turned something small into something massive. A cold CEO spotted with mystery girl. Was Adrian Cross hiding a secret relationship? From boardrooms to street food, what changed? Speculation spread fast. Too fast. Adrian ignored most of it until his assistant stepped in, hesitant. Sir, there's more. He looked up. There's a name. A pause. Amia. Adrian's jaw tightened. How? They were still tracing it, but someone followed you. Repeatedly. Of course they did. That's how his world worked. Everything observed, everything analyzed, everything exposed, everything except Mia. She wasn't built for this. He left early. No meetings, no calls. Just one destination, the cafe. It was empty, not unusual, but her table, empty too. No fries, no laughter, no Mia. Adrian stood there longer than he should have, then turned, walked out. Straight into noise, people whispering, phones out, eyes watching. He ignored all of it until, hey, he stopped, turned. Mia stood across the street. No smile this time, no fries, just stillness. Ear trending, she said. Adrian exhaled slowly. I noticed. She crossed the street, stopping a few steps away. You didn't tell me who you were. You didn't ask. That's not the point. No, Adrian said quietly. It's exactly the point. Mia shook her head, slightly processing. I thought you were just some guy. I am. No, she said, her voice tightening just a little. We are not. Silence stretched between them, cars passing, city noise filling the gaps neither of them knew how to close. Does it change anything? Adrian asked. Mia looked at him, really looked, like she was trying to find the version of him she had laughed with, the one who didn't feel untouchable. I don't know, she said honestly. It doesn't have to. It does, she replied. Your world is loud. Mine isn't. Adrian stepped closer. It doesn't have to be. Mia let out a soft, humorless laugh. You don't get it. Then explain it to me. She hesitated, and that hesitation said more than words. A people like you, she said slowly, you don't just exist. You consume space, attention, control. Adrian's voice dropped. Slightly, drop 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 slightly. And you think I'll consume you? I think, she said, meeting his eyes, you won't even notice when it happens. That hit harder than anything else. Because for the first time, Adrian didn't have an immediate answer. I didn't plan this, he said. Neither did I. Then don't let something neither of us plan destroy something that matters. The word lingered. Mia's expression shifted slightly. Matters, she echoed. Adrian held her gaze. Yes, for a moment, just a moment, it felt like everything might settle. Like they could step around the noise. Ignore the world. Stay in their strange, quiet orbit. And then a voice cut through. Hey! They both turned. A man approached quickly, tension written all over him. You need to come with me. Now. Mia stiffened slightly. What's going on? Oh, you're being followed, he said 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 unfollowed, he said unfollowed, he said unfollowed, he said unfollowed, he said underfollowed, 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 he said under is followed, 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 he said under his breath. Of photos, questions, people asking where you live, Adrian's expression hardened instantly. "Who are you?" he asked. The man glanced at him briefly. Someone who actually knows her life. Mia stepped between them. Stopped between them. Stop. She looked at Adrian, then at the man, then back again. "This is exactly what I meant," she said quietly. Adrian felt something twist in his chest. "This can be handled." "You don't handle everything," she replied. "I can protect you." Mia shook her head. "I don't want to be something that needs protecting." The words landed like a quiet fracture. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep. "I need time," she said finally. Adrian's voice was steady, but lower now. "For what?" To figure out if this, she gestured between them, is real, or just something that feels real until your world decides otherwise. Mia gave him a small, sad smile. "You really believe that?" The man stepped closer again. "We have to go." Mia nodded slowly, then looked at Adrian one last time. No laughter, no teasing, just something softer, more fragile. "I don't regret meeting you," she said. Adrian didn't move, didn't speak, because anything he said now would either be too much or not enough. She turned, walked away, disappeared into a world that suddenly felt very far from his. That night, Adrian stood in his penthouse again. Same view, same city, same silence, but this time it felt louder. Because for the first time in years, there was something missing, and he knew exactly what it was. Across the city, Mia sat by her window, a box of untouched fries beside her. Cold, like something that had lost its moment. She picked one up, stared at it, then let out a quiet breath. "We're doing it again," she whispered to herself, but this time there was no one there to hear it. And somewhere between power and simplicity, between control and chaos, two people stood on opposite sides of a line neither of them knew how to cross, yet neither of them could walk away from either. Adrian Cross had built his entire life on one principle: if something threatens control, eliminate the threat. But this time, he didn't know what the threat was. The media? The board? The man who showed up to take Mia away? Or the fact that, for the first time, control itself felt like the problem? Find out who leaked the photos. His voice was calm, but the room felt colder. His head of security nodded. "And we're already tracing it." Early signs point to someone inside your own circle. Of course, it was always internal. "A name," Adrian said. "Not confirmed yet." Adrian's gaze hardened slightly. "Then confirm it." By midnight, the name landed. Victor Hale, senior partner, longtime ally. A man who believed emotion was weakness and reputation was currency. Adrian stared at the report. A motivation? A pressure? His assistant said carefully. He's been pushing for a merger you've repeatedly delayed. He believes this situation makes you vulnerable. Adrian let out a slow breath. Oh, so he created leverage. Yes. And used her to do it. A pause. Yes. Across the city, Mia didn't know any of this. She only knew her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Unknown numbers, messages, requests, questions she didn't want to answer. She turned it off. Silence, but not peace. Because now the noise lived in her head. You step into something warm, then leave when it starts to matter. She pressed her fingers against her temple. Then prove me wrong. She exhaled slowly. I don't even know if you can, she whispered. The next morning, Adrian didn't go to the office. He went to her. He found her exactly where he thought he would. The cafe, same table, same fries. But this time, she wasn't laughing. She looked up when he approached. No surprise, just recognition. You're persistent, she said quietly. You're avoiding me. A maybe. Adrian sat down anyway. Neither of them spoke for a moment. The air felt different now, heavier. Real in a way that didn't leave room for jokes. It was intentional, Adrian said finally. Mia frowned slightly. What was? The photos. The attention. Someone made it happen. She leaned back a little. That doesn't make it better. No, he admitted, but it means you weren't wrong. Mia studied him. About what? That my world would interfere. A small pause. And? She asked. And I'm fixing it. She let out a quiet breath. That's what you do, isn't it? Fix things. Control things. Yes. And where does that leave me? Adrian didn't answer immediately. Because that question didn't have a clean solution. I don't want to be a problem you solve, she said. You're not a problem. Then what am I? The question lingered. Not playful this time. Not light. Adrian leaned forward slightly. He stopped. Not because he didn't know, but because saying it would change everything. Mia watched him struggle with the words. And for the first time, she didn't help, didn't joke, didn't soften it. Because this mattered, you see, she said gently. This is what I meant. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. I'm not good at this. I know this. I know, but I'm trying. Mia looked down at the fries, then back at him. That's the only reason I'm still here. That landed. Quiet, but powerful. Who is he? Adrian asked suddenly. Mia blinked. Who? The guy from yesterday. Oh, she leaned back slightly. His name's Daniel. He's my brother. Adrian paused. The tension in his shoulders eased, just a fraction. He seemed protective. He is, Mia said softly. Oh, because he's seen what happens when people like you enter lives like mine. Adrian didn't flinch. Then he's seen the wrong people. Have I? That question sat between them like a line neither of them wanted to cross first. I spoke to my board, Adrian said. Mia raised an eyebrow. About me? Yeah, sounds terrifying. It wasn't a discussion. That made her almost smile. Almost. Well, what did you say? That if anyone used you again for leverage, they'd lose more than they'd gain. Mia held his gaze. You threatened them. I warned them. That's the same thing in your world. Adrian didn't deny it. Silence settled again, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable, just unfinished. Mia picked up a fry, turning it between her fingers. You know what scares me the most? Adrian waited. Not the attention, not the noise. She looked at him. It's how easy it would be to lose myself in your world. Adrian's voice softened slightly. And you think I'd let that happen? I think, she said honestly, you wouldn't notice until it already did. That hurt. More than the accusations, more than the distance. Because deep down, he wasn't sure she was wrong. I don't want to change you, he said. Mia smiled faintly. You don't have to. Life around you will do it for you. Then I'll change that. You can't change everything, Adrian. Watch me. She shook her head, but there was something different in her eyes now. Not doubt, not fully, but not certainty either. Why? She asked suddenly. Why what? Why are you trying this hard? The question was simple, but the answer wasn't. Adrian looked at her, really looked. And this time, he didn't hesitate. Because when I'm with you, he said slowly, I don't feel like I'm managing a life. Mia's breath caught slightly. And? I feel like I'm actually living one. The words landed softly, but they stayed. For a moment, everything else faded. The noise, the pressure. The world waiting outside. Mia looked down, then back up, her voice quieter now. That's not something you can walk away from later. I'm not planning to. You didn't plan this either. Adrian leaned in just slightly. No, he said, but I'm choosing it. That was new. Not reaction. Not accident. Choice. Mia exhaled slowly, then for the first time since everything changed, she smiled. Not her loud, chaotic laugh. Not her teasing grin. Just something small. Real. Okay, she said. Adrian stilled slightly. Okay, she repeated. But we do this my way too. Oh, but we do this my way too. Which is? She pushed the fries toward him again. No control, no fixing, no turning this into some perfect version of what you think it should be. Adrian looked at the fries, then at her. That sounds inefficient. Mia's smile grew just a little. Exactly. He picked up a fry, took a bite, and this time, he didn't overthink it. Outside, the world was still watching, still calculating, still waiting for something to break. But inside that small cafe, something fragile had shifted again. Not solved, not safe, but chosen. And this time, that choice might be the one thing neither of them could undo. The deal was supposed to close in 48 hours. A multi-billion-dollar merger. Months of strategy, years of positioning. Adrian Cross had built it piece by piece. Controlled, precise, inevitable. Until now. You're making a mistake. Victor Hale stood across from him again, voice low but edged with urgency. This is bigger than you, Victor continued. Bigger than your distractions. Adrian didn't look up from the document in front of him. Everything is bigger than something, he said calmly. That doesn't make it worth keeping. Victor's jaw tightened. You're about to walk away from the most powerful position you've ever had. Adrian finally looked at him. And you're about to learn the difference between power and control. A beat. Victor exhaled sharply. This is about her. No, Adrian said, voice steady. This is about me deciding what I don't want to become. Across the city, Mia was having a very different kind of day. Say that again. Her brother Daniel leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. He's not just some CEO, Mia. Mia? He's that CEO, the kind people build entire industries around or get crushed under. I know who he is now, she replied. Do you? Daniel shot back. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're standing in the middle of something that can swallow you whole. Mia stayed quiet for a moment. Then she said, softer, he's not what you think. Daniel let out a short laugh. That's exactly what people always say before things go wrong. Later that evening, Mia didn't go to the cafe. For the first time since they'd started whatever this was, she didn't show up. Adrian noticed immediately. He sat at their table, waited. 5 minutes. 10. 30, the same slow, unfamiliar unease crept back in. But this time, it wasn't just uncertainty, it was something heavier. Because now he understood what absence felt like. An hour later, he stood, left money on the table, walked straight into rain. He didn't call, didn't text, he didn't have to. Because he knew where she'd be. The knock on her door wasn't loud, but it was certain. Mia froze for a second before opening it. Adrian stood there, rain-soaked, silent, not angry, not demanding, just there. You didn't come, he said. She leaned against the door slightly. I needed to think. About leaving? Mia didn't answer right away, and that silence said enough. Can I come in? He asked. She hesitated, then stepped aside. Her apartment was small. Simple. Warm in a way his penthouse never was. Adrian took it in quietly, like he was stepping into a world that didn't belong to him, but mattered anyway. Mia closed the door. You don't fit here, she said softly. Adrian glanced at her. I fit where I choose to stand. That's the thing, she replied. You always have a choice. You don't think I'm choosing this? I think you want to, she said. I don't know if you'll keep choosing it when it gets harder. Adrian stepped closer. It's already hard. Mia shook her head slightly. Oh, this, she gestured between them. This is still the easy part. A pause. The hard part is when something demands you to give something up. Adrian's expression shifted slightly. Like what? Mia met his eyes. Your world. Or me. The words hung there. Heavy. Real. Unavoidable. That's not a choice I'm making, Adrian said. It will be a no. Yes, she said quietly. Because people like you don't live halfway lives, neither do you. The unspoken words sat between them. Yeah, I walked away from the merger, Adrian said suddenly. Mia blinked. You what? I ended it. Adrian, it wasn't worth it. Wasn't worth it, she repeated slowly, trying to process. That was huge. I know. And you just, what, let it go? Yes. Oh, why? He stepped closer. Close enough now that the distance between them felt like something fragile. Because for the first time, he said quietly, I saw what I was building and realized I didn't want to live inside it. Mia's breath caught slightly. And you think walking away from one deal changes everything? No, Adrian admitted. But it changes me. Silence, not empty. Just full. You can't keep proving things like that, she said softly. That's not sustainable. I'm not proving anything. Then what are you doing? Adrian held her gaze. Choosing. Mia looked away for a second, because that word was harder to face than doubt. Do you know what scares me? She said quietly. Adrian didn't interrupt. War's starting to matter to me in a way that isn't safe. Adrian's voice softened. Since when has safe ever mattered to you? Mia let out a small breath. Since now. Long pause settled. Rain tapping softly against the window. The world outside moving, waiting, unaware. If this falls apart as she started, it won't. You don't know that. I do. How? Adrian didn't answer immediately, because certainty was something he'd always relied on. But this wasn't predictable. I don't, he admitted. The honesty landed differently than anything else he'd said. But I know I won't walk away. Mia searched his face for doubt, for hesitation, for anything that felt like an escape route. She didn't find it. That's a big promise, she said. I don't make small ones. For a moment, everything balanced on the edge of something neither of them could define. Aina. Not control, not chaos, something in between. Mia stepped closer, close enough now that she could see the tension he carried even when he looked calm. We're not allowed to disappear, she said quietly. Adrian's voice dropped slightly. I told you, I don't. And not physically, she reminded him. Yes, physically, she reminded him. A flicker of something passed through his eyes. Then, why won't, he said. This time, it wasn't a defense. It wasn't a strategy. It was a decision. Mia nodded slowly. Then, for the first time since the storm started, she leaned into him. Not dramatic, not rushed, just real. Adrian stilled for half a second, then let himself respond. Not controlled, not calculated, just present. Outside, the rain kept falling. The world kept moving. The pressure didn't disappear. The consequences didn't fade. But inside that small apartment, two people stood in something uncertain, complicated, and fragile, and chose not to step away from it. Even knowing the hardest part hadn't even begun yet, the morning after the rain didn't feel like a fresh start. It felt like standing at the edge of something that had already begun moving. Adrian woke before his alarm, not out of habit, out of awareness. Mia was still asleep beside him, her breathing soft, uneven in that unguarded way people only had when they felt safe. For a long moment, he didn't move. Didn't check his phone, didn't think about the board, the press, the consequences waiting outside that door. He just watched. It was unfamiliar territory, stillness without purpose, and it unsettled him. Not because it was uncomfortable, but because it felt dangerously close to something he couldn't control. Mia shifted slightly, her hand brushing against his arm. Adrian stilled instinctively. She didn't wake, just settled closer. Trust, unquestioned, uncalculated. That word lingered longer than it should have. Because trust wasn't something Adrian dealt in. Not like this, not without contracts, leverage, or exit strategies. But here, there was none of that. And for the first time in his life, he didn't know if that made him stronger or exposed. His phone buzzed on the table. Once, twice, then continuously. Adrian didn't need to check to know what it was. The world hadn't paused just because he had. He carefully moved away, standing, pulling on his shirt as he stepped into the next room. By the time he picked up the phone, he was already Adrian Cross again. Or at least he was trying to be. Sir, we have a situation. His assistant's voice was tight. A defined situation. Victor didn't stop at the photos. Adrian's expression hardened. What did he do? A pause. Then, he's going after her. The words landed with a precision that cut deeper than any business threat. How? Nothing illegal, not directly. But pressure. Adrian didn't speak. She's being approached, questioned. People offering money for information. Her workplace has been contacted. Her landlord too? A beat. A landlord too? He's isolating her. Adrian's grip on the phone tightened slightly. Where is Victor? In the city. Preparing for a private shareholder meeting this afternoon. Adrian's voice dropped. Cancel it. Sir, you said cancel it. There was a pause on the line. You can't just... I can, Adrian interrupted calmly. And I will. When he stepped back into the room, Mia was awake, sitting up, watching him. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. She saw it in his face. It's starting, isn't it? She said quietly. Adrian didn't lie. Yes. Mia nodded slowly, like she'd expected it, like part of her had been waiting for it since the moment everything began. What kind of starting? She asked. A pressure, disruption. They'll try to make this uncomfortable. Mia let out a small breath. That's one way to put it. Adrian stepped closer. This isn't your fight. Mia looked up at him. It became my fight the second I met you. He didn't argue that, because it was true. I can stop it, he said. How? By ending it. The words came out before he could soften them, and the second they landed, he saw it. That flicker in her eyes, not shock, not anger, just something quieter, more final. You mean ending this, she said. Adrian held her gaze. I mean ending the part where you're exposed to something you didn't choose. Mia stood slowly. And you think that's a solution? It removes the threat. No, she said softly. It removes me. Silence stretched between them. Heavy, unavoidable. I'm trying to protect you, Adrian said. Mia shook her head. We're trying to control the outcome. That's how problems are solved. And I told you, she said, her voice steady but firm now. I'm not a problem. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, something he rarely did. Frustration wasn't something he showed. But this wasn't a boardroom. There was no clear strategy here. No clean win. If you stay, he said carefully, this gets worse before it gets better. Mia crossed her arms slightly. And if I leave, that stops. She let out a quiet, almost disbelieving laugh. You really think I'm that easy to erase? I don't want to erase you. Then stop talking like I'm a liability you can just cut out of your life. That hit harder than anything else. Because it sounded exactly like something he would do. Something he had done with everything else. I'm not used to this, he admitted. I know. I don't know how to handle something I can't control. Mia's expression softened slightly, then stopped trying to control it. Another silence, but this one felt different. Less sharp, more honest. What do you want to do? Adrian asked. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't a strategy. It was a question, and for him that was new. Mia looked at him for a long moment, like she was measuring something deeper than words. I don't want to run, she said finally. Adrian nodded once. Then we don't run. The simplicity of it surprised even him. Because for once, if he wasn't calculating the cost, he was just choosing the direction. The shareholder meeting didn't get canceled. Adrian showed up instead, unannounced, uninvited, unapologetic. The room went silent the moment he walked in. Victor stood at the head of the table mid-sentence, his expression tightening just slightly. Adrian, he said, controlled. This isn't on your schedule. Adrian didn't slow his pace. His schedules change. Every eye in the room tracked him. Power recognized power, and tension followed both. You've created unnecessary attention, Victor continued. We're here to stabilize the situation, not escalate it. Adrian stopped across from him. This isn't about stabilization. No, Victor's tone sharpened. Then, what is it about? Adrian didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. It's about you deciding you could use someone outside this room as leverage. A ripple moved through the table. Subtle, but present, Victor exhaled slowly. You're letting emotion cloud your judgment. No, Adrian said calmly. I'm letting it clarify it. That wasn't something Adrian Cross said, not ever, and the room felt it. You built an empire on detachment, Victor pressed. And now you're risking it for what? A distraction? Adrian's expression didn't change, but something in his presence did, something sharper. More grounded. She's not a distraction, he said. Then what is she? The question hung there. Not just from Victor, from everyone. Waiting, watching, measuring. Adrian held that silence for a second, too. Then, she's the only thing in my life that isn't built on control. No one spoke, because that answer didn't fit the man they knew. Victor let out a quiet, almost incredulous breath. And that makes her valuable? It makes her real. The difference landed, clear, unavoidable. Victor leaned forward slightly. And what happens when real becomes inconvenient? Adrian didn't hesitate. I adapt. That was the truth. But not the whole truth, not anymore. Or you lose everything, Victor said. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. Then I lose what was never worth keeping. Silence. Heavy. final. The meeting ended without resolution. Because there was nothing left to negotiate. Not really. That night, Adrian didn't go back to the penthouse. He went back to her. Mia was sitting by the window again, fries in her lap, untouched. She looked up when he entered. "You look like you just walked out of a war." Something like that. He sat down across from her. This time, he reached for a fry first. No hesitation. No overthinking. Mia watched him, then smiled. "Just a little. You're getting better at that. I had a good teacher, silent settled, but it wasn't empty. They won't stop," she said. "I know. Are you going to?" Adrian met her gaze. No," she nodded slowly. "Good. Outside." The world was still watching, still pushing, still waiting for something to break. But inside, something else was happening. Something quieter, stronger in a way that didn't rely on control. Mia picked up a fry, pointed it at him again. "Your face is doing that thing." Adrian raised an eyebrow slightly. "What thing?" "That I'm about to overthink everything. Thing." He almost smiled. Almost. "Maybe," he admitted. Mia grinned, then laughed. Loud, unfiltered, exactly the same as the first night. And this time, Adrian didn't just feel it. He understood it. Not as chaos, not as inefficiency, but as something rare. Something real. And for the first time since all of this began, he didn't try to contain it. Didn't try to control it. Didn't try to protect himself from it. He just sat there with a girl, a pile of fries, and a life that no longer made sense the way it used to, and let it happen.